How do you feel about the biohacking, world in general? Because I've been to so many, I know so many great biohackers, and the technology is great. Like you said, you could have a great PEMF machine. We know kind of, voltage is healing, Jerry Tennant sort of idea to that and everything. And
Mhm.
but really kind of going into this idea, I find that most biohackers look for the magic bullet, whether it's the peptide, whether it's the machine they associate with the lymphatic drainage kind of suit they're wearing, and everything. And oftentimes, I find, something you talked about in your book, Begin Again, is they're missing the emotional or traumatic part, right? A lot of
Right.
them do have maybe something in a trauma or emotional, distress or dysfunction that they never addressed. And they're always looking for something outside to change something inside.
100%. In fact, Gabor Maté has stated 80% of chronic disease is due to emotional traumas that
Yeah.
happen. And, when I ask people about it, starting at childhood, many people say, "Oh, I had a great childhood," until you start to, work into
Yes.
it. And, what people tend to think about trauma is, what we divide is called the big T's or little T's. The big T's are the obvious types of things, the you lived in a household where it was very traumatic, an alcoholic parent perhaps, or your house burned down, or you're in a bad car accident. I mean, pretty significant. I mean, you don't forget those types of things, but what they do forget is the fact that maybe there wasn't enough food, or maybe they weren't treated properly, per se, or they were told, like the statistics say, that a kid before 5 is told like 300,000 times, "No, sit down, be quiet. No, not your turn," etc. It's like you don't think that that's a trauma. It's just like, oh, your parents are disciplining you, but that has a very negative impact, and I call those things, you learn how to respond to your stressors. That's your learned perception. You just mentioned earlier, let's 7. You go to the doctor and you just assume that the doctor has the answer. So you believe the doctor has the answer. How did you get that opinion? Well, your mother said, well, you go to the doctor because the doctor, and what I heard so often, which was actually very discouraging in dentistry, so many times people would find out when I was doing dentistry, they'd look at their 3 or 4 year old and say, "If you're not good, he's going to give you a needle."
Oh boy.
It's like, oh my God, you talk about why are people afraid to go to the dentist? Because they've been traumatized by their parents thinking that behave or you're going to be punished, per se. And a lot of our traumas are that type of thing. They're little types of things that we've learned to live with and deal with. And that ultimately has affected how we have learned to deal with our life experiences throughout, our family life, our work life, etc. You look at society nowadays and you say, how do people get to this point where we're not all? I mean, we're 8 billion people on this planet. We're all the same, with a 1 or 2% genetic difference. Like, how can we treat people so poorly? How we don't even treat animals like that. It's like,
Yeah.
how can we treat people like this? Per se. So we get into that type of thing. So the biohacker aspect is 100%. It's like instead of the pill, let's use some magic bullet device. And until we address things that you just mentioned, in fact, that's why I believe we start with, I like to ask people, do you know anything about your mother's pregnancy? Like, what
Mm.
was that like? What was oh, yeah, she was fine. Oh, but by the way, she took this or took that. It's
Yep.
like, what, do you think that had any impact on this? Well, I don't think so. But when they start to understand it, and now it's become, trauma, understanding trauma, and Gabor Maté certainly is a big part of that. He's probably one of the best known in that whole area of how trauma impacts our health, in general, which is, in my case, the book that I wrote on Begin Again, how trauma affects your health. That's based on, for me, 30 years of experience of dealing with patients, who wondered why they had got heart disease, or wondered why they have, mental illness, or it doesn't matter. The name of the condition is not important, per se. But
Right.
when you start to unravel that, and that particular therapy that I outline in that book, that I have used now in hundreds and hundreds of patients, actually unravels that aspects, and it literally unravels. I call it like peeling an onion until you get to the true core of the issue. And when we start to see patients, with whatever their challenges are, I say all we're dealing with is the outer layer of the onion. And so we'll
Mhm.
peel off these layers. And eventually, that's why it's not something, there's no immediate cure. We can't go to the root. We may understand what it is, but you don't know all the pieces that are lying on top of it. And we have to unravel those particular pieces before we get to the core. And then when you're at the core, now you're on maintenance. And maintenance
Mhm.
is the things that you do for yourself on an everyday basis, per
Yes.
se.
Yeah. And isn't that the future of medicine, right? Everyone's looking at one thing. The biohackers are looking at their devices. Functional medicine is looking at their labs and supplements. And of course, conventional medicine is looking at genetic,
Right.
personalized treatments with pharmaceuticals.
Right.
Psychology is only looking at the emotion. Isn't it
Right.
bringing it all together to truly be holistic?